Welcome to Sticking to the Truth with Julene Jackson and Debbie Jansen. Hi, Julene. I'm having a ball and I'm glad to be with you today because God is working some things out and a big project I'm working on is coming together. So it's a great time to be alive.
Wonderful.
But unfortunately, an overwhelming amount of American citizens are living in fear. So today we're going to talk about fear, crippling fear, panic attacks, whatever. And we're going to try to help you with that because lies lead you to fear. And we want to make sure that our listeners are living happy lives. There in America right now, there's the fear of food, the fear about democracy, fear of violence, fear about politics, fear of the past, fear of the future, fear of economics, fear, and more fear. Not just an occasional bout of fear, but then there's that overwhelming, crippling fear that just gets into your life and hurts you. And that is no way to live. And I am urging all of our listeners today, let's get rid of your fear. And we're going to give you some suggestions and a plan that will help you to rid your life of fear. We are not called to fear, right, Julene? But to power, love, and a sound mind. How are you doing, darling?
Oh, amen, sister. So good to see you on this beautiful spring day. Deb, we are not taking counsel from our fears today. So I can't wait to talk about that. All is well here in Washington, D.C. You know, that's where I live. It is cherry blossom season. And
Oh, I was
it
hoping
is
for
a
that.
good time of year to be here. I used to sing to my little kiddies when they were young a little Bible song about popcorn popping on the apricot tree, and I always burst out in that song this time of year. But as I was walking to yoga yesterday, and just the trees are just popping full of the blossoms. The Cherry Blossom Festival started last weekend, and it goes till April
Oh,
12th. The big cherry blossom parade is in 2 weeks. There's kite festivals and freedom
wow.
walks and family celebrations and Pedalpalooza concerts, and it's beautiful around the tidal basin, and all the monuments downtown are just these beautiful cherry blossoms, and it's just a good time to be alive. I love spring. I have a bunch of tulips and daffodils in the front yard right now, and it's just a reminder to me, right, that there is life after a cold winter. There's hope after despair. There's grace that bursts forth from the darkness, and here we come, spring again in the midst of all the fear and the angst of the world. Hope returns, and we are upon it at this springtime.
Oh, I love it, Julene. I love it. I wish I could be there and see all of that. We used to
Yeah.
live in Georgia, and they had a company there that every year they had these rows and rows of those trees, and it
Yeah.
was absolutely
Yeah.
gorgeous. I love cherry blossom
Yeah.
trees.
My mom always said there cannot be an atheist in the springtime because God's handiwork is just in full display. I think she said that
I
all the
agree
time
with
too.
your mom. I agree
Yeah,
with you, your mom. Well,
yeah.
that's great. But let me ask you this. Have you ever been afraid or had a time when you were gripped by a problem or you felt nervous or anxious?
Yeah, I mean, Deb, I've given birth to 7 children, so I experience it
That's
every Friday and Saturday night. I am nervous. I just was last Saturday, looking at my phone, seeing where my daughter was, when she was gonna be home. But I think I've told you this, Deb, but my first and 7th babe, were, one was born stillborn and one lived for a month.
oh,
And, you know, I that last little babe, it was a surprise. I got pregnant at 40, and he about 4 months into the pregnancy, the room filled up with doctors in the ultrasound, and they said, "Oh, this babe has trisomy 18, a chromosomal disorder. He's not gonna make it." And, so they
oh.
wanted me to abort him, and I said, "No, I'll let l the Lord take him home." But, for the next 5 months, I lived with this uncertainty and fear about how long we were going to have him, and all the children I had children from ages 14 down to toddlers in the home, 5 little kids looking to mama to, see if I was gonna fall apart. Were they gonna fall apart? Were we going to be okay? And I did a
Oh.
lot of crying behind the scenes kinda thing, and then the night came when that little babe delivered, and he lived clear up to the delivery, and he was such an active little baby in utero, and,
Oh.
so he passed in the delivery, and, we lived in a small town in Oregon, so I had all the kids come up, really probably just minutes after the birth, and they all the oldest was 13, the youngest was just about, gosh, 2, and they all took turns holding this little babe, and it was just really a heart-wrenching experience, but it was such a sacred experience and brought our little family closer together in ways that nothing could have, accomplished that, and we have a strong belief that we will be with those sons and those brothers again in the heaven. But, at the time, many tears of sorrow were shed, and it was a fearful and melancholy time in my life, and I think that's one of the reasons, Deb, that I love Easter, because it speaks of new life and resurrection and hope that there's no victory. What's the scripture say in Isaiah? No victory in the grave, that the sting of death is swallowed up in Christ because he is the light and life of the world. And so you just move forward in faith when you face those seasons of uncertainty and fear and sadness.
Wow. Now, Julian, we have a full program, but I gotta tell you, you made me cry. You made me
Oh,
tear up.
oh,
I have heard ladies talk about when you lose a child, it never leaves you.
no.
My mother-in-law lost a child, and she talked about that child her whole life.
Yeah.
And it's a traumatic, difficult thing to go through. And I'm sure there was a lot of anxiety and pain and sorrow with that. And I'm so sorry. I've had those times too. I'm a strong person and I get over tension or anxiety or toxic relationships. I get over them pretty quickly. And sorrow is a little harder for me, but I flip the script on it and I eventually move on with my life. However, with all that's going on in the world right now, and with all the negative, fearful pronouncements in the news, and I'm not just talking about politics, I'm talking about this is going to kill you, that's going to kill you. All you have to do is scroll for about 3 minutes on a social media account, and somebody is telling you you're going to die if you don't change something. And then 3 months later, oh, that's been proven wrong, or 10 years later, oh, all the stuff I've been doing for 10 years to make sure I wouldn't die, I should have been doing the opposite. It's a fearful and negative time to be alive. Now, I have had to fight with anxiety more than I ever have in the last few years. And when you experience a panic attack, you can cry or you may get angry or throw something and pitch your little temper tantrum, or you might hide in the corner or and shiver or feel like you have just a ton of weight on your shoulders, so much so that you can't move. And this is the kind of crippling fear that will trap you wherever you are. If you let it continue, even for just an hour, your whole body goes through a process of shutting down and feeling trapped. And that can make it last for days or even months, and the more you let it go, the bigger it gets. It just grows and grows. So the most important thing you can do is get up and move. Even if you just pace in your room or walk the perimeter of your inside home, get up and walk, because when you are moving your body and moving your arms or I'm an old Pentecostal, so sometimes when those come on me, I got my hands up and I'm praising God and I'm walking through the house. I'm not going to do this. And I'm moving things and moving my head around. But there is a physical reason for that. when crippling fear or anxiety grabs you, moving distracts the brain. We can multitask. We can be in a car driving, listening to music, and talking to our friend. We can do that. But when you are gripped by fear and you can't move, getting that brain to be distracted by what you're doing out here will help you deal with the anxiety and the fear. So, Julene, what do you do when you feel anxious?
Well, hearing you talk, I do what I saw my mama did. And she was diagnosed with cancer. She had 9 children, divorced my father after 26 years. And I was the oldest at home when my dad left. I was 16, 17. And she was diagnosed with cancer when I was 19. So there were still 4 of us left
Oh,
at home.
my.
Talk about fear. So she had no husband. And this was terminal cancer. The doctor said, "You have 8 months to 2 years to live." And I saw that she must have had some Pentecostal in her, because mama was always like, "The Lord will provide, children." But you know what she did? She did a daily walk, a loop, and it was about an hour walk every day. And when it was so cold outside, she had this loop in the house just like you. She would be walking the loop. I do think that there's something about movement. It just restores, like, it just boosts your cells in your brain or something. And so I walk every day. I take the dog out for a walk, and it's really a walk with Christ. I like hear the voice of God sometimes. It's like a meditation to me, walking, but sometimes I'll listen to podcasts or inspirational speakers or music. But there is something about being out in the sun and hearing the little birds and breathing in
Yes,
the air. And I also do a little meditation in the morning. I have a little meditation bench in a special little room. I do a little tapping, if you've ever heard of that, about 10 minutes of tapping, and I journal. And I'm like, who needs the drug or the therapist when
right, right.
just get out there, breathe in the air, and let the sun, the air, and God move you along.
Well, you are right on target, my dear, and that is great. And changing your surroundings is huge. I have even told some of my clients, if you can't do anything else, go out on the front porch, take a deep breath, and say, I'm fine. Nobody's coming after me. Nobody's bothering me. I'm fine. I'm alive and I'm fine. So that's great. However, I think I'm going to hop in the car, drive all the way to Washington, D.C., and just give you a hug. You are sharing things with me today, and I'm going, oh, Julene, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I mean, all of us, though, none of us skate through life. We all have these things that just, like, knock the breath out of you for a season, right? And
Right,
and if you
right.
just continue to get up, the sun does continue to come out each day,
And
and
I think that's the point. We can do this. We can control fear and anxiety and we can get over it, but there are certain things you have to do. And I do the same thing you do. I will go walking sometimes. And of course, I have some knee issues. And if I'm not always outside, I'm walking in my house. And that's when I decide to figure out if my fear is irrational or rational. For example, it's normal to be anxious about a snake that's crawling between your legs. That would terrify me. That might cause heart attack for me. But that's normal. But it's
yeah.
irrational to be anxious about the possibility of a snake being under your rocking chair. That's a lot like political fear mongering. Politicians and some of these people that want to sell you crazy things, they're trying to get you afraid and fearful so that you'll do what they want. And when they can't back up their wild and crazy negative rantings, they don't get as many people on their side. For example, do you remember this one? I saw this yesterday and I just grinned. Do you remember when AOC predicted that the world would come to an end within the next few years because of global warming? Well, it's now been those few years, and it's also been proven that we are nowhere near that. We are not going to just explode into a big ball of fire. But I also read a story yesterday that said AOC has spent over $19,000 of her campaign funds on psychedelic therapy because she is depressed and gripped with fear.
Mm,
Wonder why. Maybe she's believing her own lies, you know. So you cannot let something get in your brain and just warp it around and believe lies because lies will lead you to fear. What
yeah.
do you think, Julie?
Yeah, and they'll lead you to doing things that are not, a solution, a long-term solution, at least it's so interesting. I heard something about psychedelics yesterday. I was listening to a podcast, of a doctor who had a bad marriage, so she 22 years did some psychedelics and wanted her husband to do it to help, heal their trauma wounding, and he wouldn't do it. And so she did it, he didn't, and they ended up divorcing. And I thought, well, what good did the psychedelic do, But I've never tried them, Debbie, but I have known people that have tried them. And to me, something like that or anything that we do that's kind of extreme to me is like a hack or a hack to a spiritual experience or a hack to a quick fix from some sort of, wounding of the past. And I just think, there's no really shortcut to, solving our emotions if we're having a hard time, but it's just, a daily working at it, a daily being in communion with God. Relationships take daily work and diligence. And something like a psychedelic is kind of like a one and done, right? And you can continue
Yeah.
to do it, but it doesn't have the same impact, right? Like any drug, if you keep doing it after a while, you have to look for something else because it's not achieving, its
Yeah.
purposes. So, it's like exercise. You just keep doing it, and it doesn't look like it's doing anything. And then over time, you realize I am getting stronger. I am getting healthier. And the minute you stop doing, real legitimate ways of healing and bringing strength to your system, when you stop doing it, then you go back to your old ragged, exhausted ways. And so it's just this quiet diligence, right? God rewards efforts. There's no quick fix, and we get into our mind that we can have a psychedelic or some sort of fad solution and have it be our long-term, fix. And it's not. And that is a lie.
That is a lie. And the truth of the issue is anytime a problem comes your way, you really only have two choices. You have one, the choice of a lot of hard work to learn from that problem and to get over it and to figure out what you need to do to fix it. Or you go the easy way, like drugs or blaming everybody else or finding a way to push the work off on something else, and you don't grow. And when you don't grow, the problem does. It
Yeah.
never works to
Yeah.
push the solution for that problem out to somebody else. Now, I have known people who are just so distraught that they can't even uh, get through a normal day. And I have told them, okay, go to the doctor, get a little something to ease you, but don't take it more than a week or two. Because during that week or two, you need to concentrate on, I have to handle this myself. And that brings me up to the next tip. If we want to avoid the pain and suffering of crippling fear, it's important to train our brain. Now, here's the problem. You can train it during the fear, but it is so much better if you train it before the fear. And what I mean by that is that we fill our brain with all kinds of facts on all kinds of different issues on science, on medicine, on the news, on our government, on our parenting. Get all kinds of facts in your head. Be learning every single day. I believe that the best and the strongest person out there is going to be someone who learns something new every single day.
Mm,
When my grandkids come over, I say, "What'd you learn today?" And
mm.
they know they can't say nothing because then I will be glad to supply them with some facts. But when we have a lot of that in our brain and we are faced with what seems to be a problem, then we have facts to help us investigate
Mhm,
all the sides of that problem so
mhm,
we won't feel threatened, anxious, or fearful.
mm.
Just the other day, Ron found some stuff on I don't think it was on the internet. I think it was on a news program. And he said, should I pass this on to the kids? It was about being infected with some kind of virus on your computer. And I said, let's check out someone we trust. And that's cyberguy.com. He is really good and very honest about what is important or not. Went on there, couldn't find it anywhere. I said, you know what? I don't want you to click on the article, but I bet you at the end they're gonna sell you something. And that's a clue that it's probably not as important as they're saying it is.
Mm.
So you get all these facts in your head, and then when fear comes rushing at you, "Oh, here's a problem, and our computers are gonna die if we don't do this." You don't get all that upset. You just kind of investigate it and check it out and say, "Oh, okay. I think I'm gonna be okay." What do you think, Julie?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have to be a lifelong learner, right? So you're deepening your wells, your reservoirs of understanding as you're continually studying and learning. I mean, on my table right now, the dining room table is like my office, and I think I got that from my mama. If I ever wanted to find my mom in the house, I'd go to the dining room because she'd have all her little books and studies out, and that's where I do a lot of my studying for, for the things that I do. I have 10 books right now, that I read a few or not a few chapters, I wish, a few pages every day, and they're, books on health and book inspirational books. I even am reading a book about Black homesteaders right now. But, all this equips me with a broader perspective when,
Yes.
you know, things come my way or there's issues or troubles instead of just being roped into one way of thinking and my one person that is my guru to solve all my problems. And so, especially if you know your history, right? And you see how
Right.
conflicts have occurred and how they've been solved, and you begin to see patterns of resiliency in people that have endured hard things and how resolution has come to pass and coping skills. It just builds your reservoir of skills in order to, navigate difficult times.
And the understanding of your world. Oh, I love it, Julene. I do the same thing. I won't tell you how many books I have in my house, but Ron is thinking he needs to build a cabin out back for them. But anyway,
You
I
go,
have
Dave.
not read absolutely every one of them, but I have read chapters in them that have given me the information that I need. My dad used to tell me, Debbie, if you've got a book, you can conquer anything. And I love positive reading that helps me feel powerful. My favorite book is All In by Mark Battison because he really gets me fired up. And about the time I think I can't do this, I read in one of my favorite chapters in there and I go, no, I can do this. I can do this. Right, Julie?
Yeah, I love him. I'm reading one of my 10 is A Million Little Miracles by him. He's
Yeah.
a great author.
Yeah.
And, I think another book that is like my number 1 is the Bible. I just
Yes, absolutely.
We just, did our little devotional this morning with that my 18-year-old, he helped me talk about morning devotional, and we just finished the book of Genesis, and now we're into Exodus. So, there's about a gap of a couple hundred years from when Joseph and his family, he brought him in, he saved the nation of Israel, spared his family, and now we have a new Pharaoh, and, he's insecure, right? Because Joseph's descendants have multiplied, and he's worried that they're gonna take over, and he wants to squash the family, and he's threatened by how influential that they've become, and so he makes, the descendants of Joseph, the Israelite slaves, and we know that didn't work out too well, and because of this Pharaoh who didn't know Joseph or know the story of Joseph, didn't know the history, if you can believe that, a couple hundred years have passed. Because of this Pharaoh's insecurity and fear, his judgment is compromised. And when you are continue learning and studying and you're in correct sources of truth and power, your ability to process life is elevated regardless of what you're going through.
Exactly, exactly. I love that, I love that. But I also love to put all kinds of encouraging statements around the house. I
Oh,
consider that to be a little proactive. That way, when I'm walking around, either during the day, I'm seeing something positive, but then when a toxic situation happens, I can read those statements and kind of fill up real quick. I
yeah.
have all these little plaques, and one of them says, "Never lose your dream." And I love this statement behind me. I still remember the prayers I prayed for the stuff I have now.
Mhm.
That's powerful. And of course, had to read it the other day. I have a little tiny plaque over there that says, um, I never want to have a battle of wits with an unarmed person.
You have to remind
And you
yourself of that.
don't. It gets pretty crazy when you try to have those kind of conversations.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And, I love music. Like,
Yes.
my mom always had music going on at home, so my husband, it makes sure there's always, like, classical music or something soothing. I just this morning I like, Christian music, kinda a little snappier, upbeat. I had, Toby Mac and Forrest Frank's "Heaven on My Mind," going just a few minutes ago. So I think music is a wonderful way also to lift your spirits, you
Oh,
know?
it is. Now you have to stay away from dissonant music because it features downer things like clashing, unresolved tones. You don't realize it's happening, but if a tone doesn't resolve itself, it can and cause your brain to be depressive.
Yeah.
And so you want something that fills you up. And just the other day, I'm going to ask you this. You want something that's calming to your nerves, but I was talking to my grandchildren about some of the music that I like because I like a very big range of music. I like the old classics. I like Christian music. I like the symphonies and the classics. I like jazz bands. And I looked at Sophie and I said, and I like Juki music. And she looked, what is that? And Ron says, yeah, what is that? I says, Juki music. And I'm hearing it in my head and they couldn't figure out. They looked it up with Siri and Siri didn't even know what it was. But I think it's the old, really, beatful music back in the '50s and '60s that would come out of a jukebox, you know? So kinda jukey music, that gets my motor running too.
Oh, that's cute. Do you have a jukebox in your house?
No,
That that would be fun, Deb.
that would be really fun, and
That
I've
would be
seen
fun.
those, but no, I haven't.
Well, and I mean, we would be remiss if we did not talk about the power of prayer, right?
Oh,
I mean, just
yes.
the ability to drop to your knees before you roll out of bed or as you roll out of bed and before you go to bed at night. And we pray together as a family morning and night. Whoever is under our roof, we gather in together in a circle. And that probably has been my number one go-to when I have felt just this angst and worry and churn internally over life, and definitely talking through things with a trusted friend. I mean, Deb, how many times you're in Ohio, I'm in DC, but we've just talked things through, and I just feel so much better when you can just kind of just express some of your worries and, you know, concerns and with a dear, like-minded girlfriend, and you've served that beautiful purpose in my heart in life
Oh, you
so
serve that
often.
for me too. I mean, there's been times in the last year when I've called you bawling like a baby and
Oh,
saying, I don't know what to do. And we'd talk for a few minutes and then we'd pray together. And all of a sudden, I'm walking away a happy
yeah,
camper,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So a
So
trusted prayer partner
it's great. It's
yeah.
great. And I would suggest one more thing. I like to pull out my happy book. It's a little notebook where I write down my blessings. Journal your blessings. Journal the times when God is good to you and comes through for you. Because when you write that down, you can go back to that time after time after time, and just reading it can fill me with joy, and it can bring me out of panic or frustration or anxiety. And I also write about the times when God came to my rescue, because if He did it then, He'll do it now. And if you take the problem you're in now and you write it down in minute detail, then sit there with that piece of paper and go over the problem and say, I can handle that in about 15 minutes. So scratch that out. And then go over here. Well, I can't handle that. That's really, oh man, that's a hard one. Oh, but this one, I just need to make a phone call. Cross that out. And when you get through crossing out the things that you know you can handle, the problem goes from here to here. And
Mm,
all of a sudden, it may seem manageable.
yeah. Oh, I love that as you're talking. I mean, this is my little quote book journal. And any kind of inspirational quote, I write it down and I go through a couple pages every day of these quotes that I'm collecting. And it's like God's voice to me at that time when I wrote it down and he's re-speaking it to me. And so, and I think we both agree that, just we talked about it, both you and I, take deep breaths and just then visualize, a good ending to what we're churning about. And we know who wins in the end, right? We know God prevails. And so any kind of negative emotion, breathe it out and let it go and move forward
You
and
are
hope
so
it wins.
right. You are so right. Okay, with me right now. Let's close our eyes. Breathe in. Breathe it out. And when you breathe it out, it just goes away from you. It's somewhere else. Boy, all my listeners, do it with us. Close your eyes. Breathe it in. Breathe it out. It's gone. Now get up and move and enjoy your day. Right, Julene?
Absolutely. This has been so great, Deb.
Oh, it has. Well, we hope you've enjoyed our tips for today and that they will help you next time you feel stressed, anxious, or fearful. You do not need to live that kind of life. That's a horrible life. Get out of it as quick as you can. We will be praying for you, right, Julene?
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. So, subscribe to this podcast and join us again. You can ask us a question or request that we dig into a specific topic by writing Debbie at debbiejansen.com. And thanks again to our wonderful producer, Ken Jansen. This is Debbie Jansen, and I'm sticking to the truth.
And I'm Julene Jackson, and we hope that you will keep sticking to the truth with us. We will see you next time. Take care.
Bye bye.